So you want to hit those good situations. When you first got involved, seconds were probably a huge thing because I know Mike was into them and, a bunch of people were into it. Was first really not as evolved? Was it not as common to buy first? I know, the big funds back then were Condor and you had what's called up in New York as well. So my head.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I bought firsts for a long time, for the first 2 or 3 years that I was in this business. And then I discovered seconds. And I remember Mike Rasica and I had a buddy of mine, a guy named Ellis San Jose down here in LA County. And Ellis and I were doing some deals together. And I said, let's have a phone call with Mike and he can explain seconds to us.
Yeah.
And so we got on a little 20-minute, 30-minute phone call with Mike and he explained what he does with seconds. And I toward the end of that call, I said, is that it? Is that all it is? And there's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of things you have to learn to make seconds work for you. Things to watch out for. If you don't have the education, I'd be careful putting too much money into it.
Mm-hmm.
But firsts have been around, they're still around. I just have had much better results on seconds. I've got seconds that I bought and have received 20 times what I paid for it. I bought a second in my IRA recently. I paid like $4,000 for it, and I just collected $96,000 on it. It was a hidden gem. It was a diamond in the rough. People didn't know what they were selling, and I took a chance on it. I didn't know for sure what I was getting, but I figured, hey, I'll throw $4,000 at it, and we'll see what happens. And it happened to just pay off.
So I'm looking at some of these. You'd sent over some slides, and we can get on to it if you guys want. But one of the things I saw in here, here's one of the things that I can't wrap my head around with seconds. Is you say it could be 3 or 4 years before you start to see a return on that. And to me, I'm like 3 or 4 years. I need money now, and so it's hard for me to justify buying something that there's a good chance that I won't see anything from it for a couple of years. And granted, that happens with first from time to time, but that's more the exception than the rule. Is it how common is that on a second that you're not going to see anything for a while?
It's probably maybe a third of the notes I buy are long-term investments. And I know that when I buy it. But if I buy a $100,000 note for $5,000 or $10,000, I can afford to stick it in the file cabinet, let it sit there, and I pull it out and look at it once every 3 or 4 months or 6 months. I got a friend out here in California named Rick Solis, and he bought a lot of seconds over the years. And he'll stick them in his trash pile. He call it his trash pile, and they'll sit in the file cabinet, and you pay cheap enough prices for them, and you look at it. And but I've had a lot of seconds where I reconciled it within 6 months. I bought a second on a house in Burbank. It's one of the slides in that thing I sent over. And I paid $70,000 for it, which is a big chunk of money. But the house was worth $800, and the first mortgage was $400. And so I bought a second mortgage where the payoff was like $170 or something like that for $70,000. And I ended up approaching the homeowner saying, do you really want this house? And he said, he was 75 years old. He's like, no, not really. My grandkids are up in Sacramento. I want to move to Sacramento. So I said, well, how about if I just give you cash for keys, you move out, and I'll give you, I think I gave him $20,000 to move out, which is a pretty good chunk of money.
Yeah.
But there was so much equity in the house that I could afford to do that. So I gave him $10,000 down, and I had him sign a deed over to me that day. So I gave him half the money up front. He signed the deed. I went down the next week and recorded it. So I own the house, subject to the first mortgage. And his first mortgage is fixed at 2%. He got a modification on it. So this is a house that we're going to hold as a rental. And so I gave him, he had like 2 or 3 months to move out. I'm not in any big hurry. I said, take your time, get everything packed up, move it to Sacramento. let me know when you're ready, and I'll give you the other $10,000 cash. You hand me the keys that day, I'll hand you a check for $10,000.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And the guy's very cooperative. We're still friends today. I helped him, he helped me, and I got a great rental house. I'm getting $5,000 a month rent on that house. And the first mortgage payment is $1,600 a month.
Jesus.
Interesting.
So there's so many exits on seconds.
I'm gonna try to see if I can get that up. It is in a PDF format. Let me see if I can get it up without any craziness, but let me see if I can do it. So everyone who's watching live.
Yeah, scroll down and it'll a little further down. And this is a good one. And, Arnold Palmer, it's a funny thing. The more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
That's the thing within seconds, is that the more deals I do, the more home runs I'm going to hit. If I'm real reluctant, I'm not doing that many deals. I'm not getting the hands-on experience. I'm not getting I'm not down in the trenches doing the deal. So keep going.
Oh, stuff to watch out for. And this is another thing that I get, where is it, getting stripped out, stuff like that. That kind of thing just makes me panic when I think about, I don't want to get stripped. Like, for heaven's sakes, I just put money into this.
Why don't you describe a little bit what that means? Because a lot of people are very confused about what strip means.
Yeah.
Well, if the homeowner files BK and there's no equity over the first mortgage, suppose the first mortgage is $200,000 and the house is worth $185,000, then they can strip the lien. But you have to be aware of that when you buy the note. And a lot of times I buy notes with no equity. I'll buy notes at 140% loan to value, but I pay a lower amount for it. And those are the ones I stick in the file cabinet, and I don't look at them. I look at them once a year or once every 6 months. And I don't take any action until the first amortizes down, the balance on the first goes down significantly, or the home value rises.
Right.
And that has really paid off for us in the last 2 or 3 years.
For sure.
With low interest rates, so many people are refinancing their houses and equity's going up, that we've gotten payoffs on loans that we bought for small amounts of money, getting really large payoffs. But the lien strip, it just means that if the homeowner wants to go out and file Chapter 13, they can't do it in the Chapter 7. They can only do it in the 13. And if there's no equity, they can have the lien stripped. It's called motion to avoid lien. It's the legal term you'll see on the docket report. So I had to become real familiar with Pacer. I'm on Pacer almost every day looking at stuff, checking notes. We still have close to 300 notes right now. And we're still dealing with some bankruptcies, but I've had some of my best loans were bankruptcy loans. It's just, and once you know it, you're familiar with it, it's not a scary thing. And there's a lot of opportunity there.
But let me just jump in real quick. A lot of people get confused when you strip a lien. Does that mean you can't foreclose on them? Does that mean that the lien is gone? What does that mean for the investor?
It means your lien is unsecured and you can't foreclose on it. But you probably will get paid something. I had a lien strip happen down in South Orange County, San Juan Capistrano, and we bought the loan for about $15,000, and we ended up collecting about $20,000 over the 4 years. So they pay you like credit card debt. There's different levels of debt in a bankruptcy. There's secured debt and there's unsecured debt. So we still got some money. We got our costs back plus a little bit. It was still a break-even deal for us, but at least we didn't get completely wiped out. So yeah, when they're lien stripped, you can't foreclose on it. It's basically unsecured at that point.
Interesting.
So obviously,
one of the other ones.
Go ahead. You mean go back up?
One of the other ones is statute of limitations. So, and this is again where I'm trying to reconcile the two things, because on the one hand, you're saying you just stick it in a drawer for a couple of years. On the other hand, you're saying beware
Yeah.
of statute of limitations. So
But
if you stick it in a drawer, aren't you just tempting fate there?
no, we have a spreadsheet or like a Google Doc sheet with all the statute of limitations for each note.
Okay.
And we kind of target that. But in California, it's 10 years after the maturity date.
Oh, wow.
So if you got a 30-year loan that matures in 2056,